welcome back to the Salem News and Gloucester Times Sports Podcast, Bandied About. I am Phil Stacey, Executive Sports Editor at the Salem News, Matt Williams, Assistant Sports Editor, and Nick Giannino, Gloucester Times Sports Editor. Gentlemen, what's going on?
Same old.
Yo.
What are we doing?
Not much. It's Wednesday, October 9th, and got a little bit of a different week this week with Jewish holiday this weekend, which means we've got some football pushed up. Willie, what's going on at UC?
Well, let's start with our discussion from last week. Let's go straight to the Salem-Beverly Bridge because I put the brakes on the statement that maybe Salem was better than Beverly based on Beverly's taking Gloucester to the woodshed, and then Gloucester surprised everybody on this podcast by taking Salem out behind the barn and wailing on them on Friday night. So, Nick, I'll start with you. You, unlike your namesake, Nick Kukuru, did not even pick Gloucester, which did not earn you any points north of the other bridge. And so tell us how Gloucester beat Salem. I mean, for them to beat them, not only beat them by 3 touchdowns, I think surprised everybody here. And, to me was the most surprising result of a weekend that had a lot of surprising scores.
Yeah, I was definitely sitting there a little surprised as it was unfolding, but the more I watched, I said, that this Gloucester team was committed to what they wanted to do. They definitely came ready to play. I think, they probably heard the noise thinking that, seeing that everyone else probably picked Salem, and Salem was coming off, like we talked about, those 2 50-point games, albeit against, weaker competition. And they got off to a great start. They scored, I think on their opening drive, they had a 14-0 lead. Then they went for it on 4th down, in their own territory towards the end of the first half, which was kind of surprising at the time. And they didn't get it, and Salem took over. They ended up tying it up going into the break, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, now Salem's going to turn it around, and what we predicted might start unfolding here. But to their credit, the Fishermen kept their foot on the gas. They came back out. They got the second half kickoff. They scored again, and they were off to the races from there. So just a really impressive performance at home, good crowd. I wrote about it. I think it was kind of a contrast of 2 different style teams. Salem likes to go to that spread. They like to air it out. I think their quarterback, Andreas Bernal, threw about 35 passes. And some of that had to do with them falling behind a little bit. But they really abandoned the run. I mean, they weren't able to do much on the ground, and they went to the air. And like I said, Gloucester just seemed ready for that. Their defensive backs played pretty well. Their line, who we've talked about a lot this season as being kind of undersized, showed some really good technique, and they were able to get to Bernal and in the on his dropbacks and apply some pressure. Bernal threw a couple picks, so their D-backs were ready for the throws, and just complete performance, defensively and then offensively, ground and pound, wing T. They only attempted 4 passes. I thought Rodolosi ran a tight huddle, and we've talked about, they got some guys that can do some different things out of the backfield, and they just mixed it up really nicely with the power runs to Thomas Cribbs, getting Jalen Severino outside. He only rushed the ball like 6 or 7 times again, but went over 100 yards, had a couple breakaway touchdowns. And then Joe Allen chipping in as well out of the backfield. So it was really just a full team effort.
Interesting this week, Nick, with Swampscott coming in. Swampscott coming off of a bye. They had defeated Peabody earlier this season, which was noteworthy to me. I would say an even bigger test for Gloucester this week. How are they going to be able to counter the Swampscott attack with Henry Butler running the ball and the fleet of wide receivers they have? Everybody from Liam Kinney, John Von Bada throwing passes, different guys that they can get the ball to and all. I mean, does anything change for them, or do they stick with what's working for them?
No, I don't think they're going to change much. Going into that Salem game, they were coming off that kind of down to the wire win out in Fitchburg. I think that really gave them some confidence, beating St. Bernard's. or Bernard's, and coming back home. And now they have another home game against a Swampscott team that can definitely put points on the board as well, like you said. And no, I don't think anything changes for them. You know, they're healthy. They're going to stick with that wing tee offense. They'll mix in some passing here and there, and they've been pretty successful with it when they do. But I think they just stick with the ground and pound and getting it to a bunch of different guys out of the backfield. And then defensively, they just got to commit to what they've been doing. They threw a couple different looks, you know, some man, some zone, and I know Swampscott will probably throw a little bit as well. But I've been impressed with their defensive backs. I've been impressed with their defensive line and their edge guys getting some pressure. So, you know, I think it's definitely, like you said, another big test for them. But I'm not going to doubt them again. You know, after seeing what they were able to do against Salem, I think they can definitely compete with this Swampscott team, and being at home certainly helps. So yeah, good start for the Fishermen, 3-1. And by the way, that win over Salem put them in the playoff picture right at number 16 in Division 5. I think they jumped up a few spots to get in there. So they're probably going to have to win their next couple games, but you know, a close loss might not be the end of it. So but they're hyped up. They're confident. They're playing with confidence right now. And I think, you know, having that familiarity with the wing tee offense, a lot of these guys ran it in youth, and going back to that this year definitely seems like it was the right decision.
Well, let's stay in the bridge, and let's continue to make analogies that don't make sense, right? This is the most interesting thing about this football season so far, is that all of the comparisons don't make a heck of a lot of sense, because Gloucester had a much easier time beating Salem than Danvers did. And then Danvers goes out and plays a much closer game against Beverly than Gloucester did. So, you know, all of the cross pollinations, all the comparisons, this is a lot more like the National Football League this year, where it's any given Sunday, than high school football, where things tend to translate. Phil, tell us a little bit about what you saw with that Beverly Danvers game. I don't think anybody expected Beverly to be in position. Basically, it feels like they should have won this game. And I think based on, you know, the permutations coming in, I know we all picked Danvers, and I certainly didn't have it within a touchdown, never mind within a blocked extra point. And it really sounded like Beverly kind of had the better of the possession, and kind of had control at points of the game.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. It's also a case of, you know, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Yeah, they probably, looking back on it, probably should have won the game. They lost a fumble on a really good first, opening drive of the game. They were marching right downfield. They were on the precipice of entering the red zone, and fumbled the ball away. They had some other real gash plays where they would get 8 yards a carry, or 11 yards here and things like that, and then they would stumble and they'd have to punt it away, or they had a poorly timed fake punt that didn't work. They had some third and shorts where they threw the ball instead of running through what, again, appeared to me to be open lanes. So, yeah, they probably had more of a chance to win that game than Danvers, especially since I think Danvers was getting gassed by the end of that game. I mean, there are a lot of two-way guys that play for Danvers, much more so than most of the teams we have. And they're young. And even though they're well conditioned, they were getting worn down by some of those long drives and time on the field. Beverly had a time of possession advantage. But I'll say this for Danvers. I mean, they're resilient. And this is a hallmark of the Ryan Nolan teams and Ryan's staff. Like, those kids just fight. And they're overmatched a lot. And I'm not saying they were overmatched in this game, but there are times they get overmatched by deeper or stronger or more talented opponents, and they always fight. And this is what we saw the other day. I mean, yes, it took a supreme, that's probably the right word, performance from their captain, Owen Shanbar. Scored both touchdowns, ran for $146, blocked that extra point, recovered a fumble. But there were other guys too that, some of those older leaders, Mike Albano, another one of the captains, did a really nice job. George DeBoule, who we highlighted in our Gridiron Gems this week was another two-way force in the line for them. A lot of different guys up front there that were contributing to that win. I think, when they had to, when Beverly had their, Danvers drove down inside the Beverly red zone. They turned the ball over with a little more than 2 minutes left. Beverly's trying to get back downfield and at least in field goal range, and they come up with a pick right away. And they were able to run the clock out from there. So Danvers was more resilient. Beverly, call it what you will, bad luck or mental mistakes or whatnot, but it's still a team that has to learn how to win. And if we're being honest, I don't think I'm going out on a limb here, but if you look at their next 3 games before the playoffs begin, and Beverly is, I didn't look at every team this past Tuesday when the pairings came out, but I'm almost positive Beverly is still listed last among the Division II teams. So they're not making the playoffs. They're 1-4. They are going to be really hard pressed to win another regular season game before those, the playoffs start for some teams and the non-playoff start for other teams. But you have Marblehead, then you have Masco, which has been moved to a Friday night game at the new turf field at Beverly. Not the new turf field, but the new lighted turf field at Beverly High. And then I would imagine the following Friday, that game that was originally scheduled with Peabody for a Saturday morning will be moved to Friday night as well. I mean, do you guys honestly see them winning any one of those 3 games as presently constituted? Yes, anything can happen. It is any given Sunday type analogy, but do we really see Beverly winning any of those 3 games?
I think they got a chance to be competitive, but I'm not going to say that I would pick them in those games. Nice win. Nice to come close to win, I should say, against Danvers.
It is and it isn't, because I think it's completely frustrating for the players, for the coaching staff, the people who watch the team. More than a winnable game. And you start off October with a win, you're feeling good, you end your 3-game losing streak, and then you have some momentum going into the rest of the month. Well, that's what Danvers is now. That's what Beverly wanted to be, and they weren't able to close the deal there.
Well, I mean, I would say, number one, are they healthy, right? Who's coming back? Who's not coming back? And then you just sort of look, and the whole matchup thing, as we kind of mentioned last week, Salem struggling to stop the run, did the same thing against Gloucester. We'll see how that sort of pass first Gloucester defense does against Swampscott, historically not so hot. If we shift to Peabody, now we say, hey, you guys, you're not stopping the run right now. Henry Butler, Swampscott, 100 yards. Jack Fabiano, Masco, 184 yards.
Yeah.
So now what is Shanbar going to do in week 8? And then what is Greg White or whoever's healthy for Beverly going to do in week 9? So, I would say Peabody would be favored against Beverly, but if they don't prove in the next 2 weeks that they can stop the run, you can kind of look at a team like Beverly that wants to run and say, wow, is there, potentially some sort of an issue there? Now, I think, some of the stuff with Peabody is their inability to get off the field on 3rd down. Masco converted 4 times on 3rd and 10 or longer. Now, is Beverly going to do that? Maybe not so much. And those early downs sort of add to those rushing totals. If you look at the first half, second half splits, Masco had, I think, a good 80% of its rushing yardage in a first half. Masco had 0 passing yards in the second half. So, once Peabody kind of made a few adjustments, they played much better defensively in that second half. But I would say if you look big picture, okay, here's what Butler did, here's what Fabiano did. If they don't stop Shanbar, then if you're Beverly going into that game, you say, well, they're going to stop White or whoever else happens to be healthy at that time. So,
why is this happening, Willie, with a team that's so big up front? I mean, I have not had a chance to see Peabody yet, so I don't know. But I really thought that one of the real strengths of that team was the beef in the middle that they had on both sides of the ball. Has that been an issue, or is it that next level of defenders, like the linebackers aren't stopping up to make plays, or the safeties are and the cornerbacks are getting sealed off and making plays, or guys are getting to the outside of me? What is it?
I mean, number one, they're just not getting off the field. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's because most of the runs, they're giving up 3 yard runs, 4 yard runs, 5 yard. They're not getting gashed. They're not, they're getting to the ball. They're getting some tackles for loss. They're not getting turnovers, and they're not getting off the field on third down. And when you're on the field for that many plays, maybe they're getting a little tired. I don't think so. I mean, they obviously had the better of the play in the fourth quarter in all their games, even the losses. Really had much better of the play in the fourth quarter against Winchester and Melrose. And you're sitting here, if you're Peabody, you're saying we handled Melrose, we beat Winchester. These two teams beat the two teams that we lost to. So that tells me a little bit like, hey, maybe we didn't show up these nights, or maybe we're not getting better and these other teams are getting better. But yeah, I really don't think it's like a personnel thing or a size thing. It's just they're not winning the money downs right now. They're not getting off the field on third down, and you have to do that in order to play winning football. I mean, they go down by 4 touchdowns against Masco, so it probably sounds stupid to chalk the game up to one play. First drive of the game, Masco gambles on 4th and short at midfield. They get a great pass rush. A kid basically gets hit as he throws up a shot put of a throw. And instead of knocking a ball down, the defensive back goes for the interception. The ball goes through his arms. The Masco kid catches it. First down, they score. And at that point, the game's essentially over. You get off the field on that 4th down, it's a totally different ball game. So those are the plays that are going against them right now. Is that going to continue all season? We'll see. Those are a lot of the plays that they got the last 2 seasons. So, hey, over a big sample size, 40, 50 games, those coin flip plays, I mean, some are going to come heads, some are going to come tails. Some days you're going to get them, some days you're not. I mean, that's just a game of football. And, I think you just live with that and just hope to learn from it and get better.
I'm guessing maybe this is a good week for them to be on a bye too.
Yeah, I mean, depending upon what Marblehead has, that's a team we haven't mentioned because they don't have a bell cow back like a Shanbar, like a Fabiano, like a Butler, which in some ways makes them even more dangerous because I don't even know who you're keying on between Banis and all these
Garcia,
other guys they have. Garcia, Selve, you don't even know
2 quarterbacks.
which quarterback it's going to be. I mean, that makes it difficult to sort of figure out what they're cooking up. But all of a sudden that certainly chalks up as a pretty big game. Not to look ahead, but if you're Peabody, you really want to go 6-2 in order to get into the top 8 there in Division 2. 5-3, that's probably going to put you on the road. Not to overlook the final 2 games because hey, if they lose to Marblehead and Danvers, I mean, it's going to be hard to miss the playoffs in Division 2 because there's so few teams. But you don't want to be dropping down in the 14, 15, 16 range and heading down to King Philip and Catholic Memorial. I mean, that's that's a death wish. So I mean, they got to find a way to win at least 2 more games, if not win out.
I think we should mention too the win last week by Ipswich. I don't think any of us saw that coming either.
Yeah.
Winning at Essex Tech, and now they play. Is it Manchester Essex this week, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting game because
At
Manchester
Highland,
hasn't
right?
really played the same quality of schedule as Ipswich.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they did play Triton, but last week wasn't much of a test for them against Brighton. That's for sure.
Well, I had seen Ipswich on their opening day, which was actually the second week of the season, and we've talked about this before, but they're young. And they also don't have a lot of numbers. They have like 25 players on the roster.
Yeah.
And, again, when I saw them against a more experienced Whittier team, they had a tough go of it. They had a close game in the mix in week 2, in their week 3, I want to say. But I was expecting Essex Tech to come out and kind of show the full, much bigger team in terms of number of guys on the sidelines, and they obviously had some skill, and they were, eager to go. And I just did not see Ipswich winning that game. I mean, credit to Zach Lampkin and his staff. Vin Winter threw for, I want to say 175 yards, career high for him. Will Gromko, captain, junior captain, scored 3 touchdowns. Weil, the other captain, had a great game too. Massey Pinsky grabbed a touchdown pass from him. I mean, maybe that's the shot in the arm that they needed, so to speak, to, again, I'm thinking for a team like Ipswich, getting to the playoffs is not the end goal here. It's constant improvement week by week. So I look at this as a good test for both them and Manchester Essex this Friday night.
They're 17th too. They're not out of it. I mean, obviously the 3-win threshold there could be an issue for a lot of these teams in Division 7.
Are they seven?
Division
Yeah, they
7.
might be
So
seven.
I mean, I'm looking
Yeah.
Blue Hills as there's a lot of teams between 12 and 20 with 1 or 0 wins. So, but hey, it starts this week against Manchester, a really dangerous team with Hurd at quarterback. I mean, they might have more guys, different guys on our scoring list that have scored at least 1 touchdown,
Yeah.
than anybody on the list at all. So, that's a really fascinating game. And
Or
I think
Essex
just,
Tech has they have North Reading this week, I want to say, which is
yeah, it's talk about the frying pan into the fire,
yeah. I know North Reading had a close game last week that they won, and if you're Essex Tech, maybe you catch them coming off somewhat of a letdown, but I don't know. That was a difficult loss for Essex Tech, and there's talent there. I went to practice a couple weeks ago. I watched them for a while. I mean, they know what they're doing. I think they picked a bad time to have an off day there. So as you said, it does get tougher for them. Looking ahead too, I know that Fenwick is home this week. They have Cardinal Spellman, which Willie, when I told you they were winless, you were kind of surprised by that because traditionally Spellman is not a down program, but they are this year. But if we look ahead to next week, they have a great game coming up, assuming they win this week. Of course, this is, but it's down to Fian for what could be 2 undefeated Catholic Central League teams. And, for as good as Fenwick is, I would imagine they would be a pretty clear underdog down there. But it makes for a great game in the lead up to it.
yeah, absolutely. I think I would like quickly to circle back to one of our games Friday this week too, and that's Danvers and Masco. Now these are teams that traditionally play close games. I believe the last game in Boxford went to overtime. And 2 great running backs. I should touch on Fabiano quickly. What I was really impressed with the last 2 games watching him is his one-cut ability. You see a lot of backs, especially in the zone read and the spread, that will kind of approach the line, make too many moves, dance too much, hesitate too much. This kid, he sees one piece of daylight, he puts his foot down, and he makes a quick decision, and he's in the hole, and he's gone. And that's really what sets him apart. I think this is a really interesting running back battle between Shanbar and Fabiano. I know Masco likes to throw it a little bit more than Danvers does, but I wouldn't be surprised if this game was over in an hour and a half with the ground game with these 2 teams.
We like hearing that. That's good. Here's a question though that I have, and I mean, as you said, Fabiano's been great. He leads the area in carries. He leads the area in rushing yards. I mean, he's got almost 800 yards, I think, in 5 games so far. Well, maybe not right at 800, but over 725 or something like that. He's got 10 touchdowns on the ground already. At some point, now we've seen this strategy work both ways on different coaches. Some guys say, this is my bell cow back. He's our best player. We're going to feed him the rock as much as we can, as often as we can, which clearly seems to be the case here with Fabiano. I mean, what is it? Halajaj is their next closest ball carrier with maybe 20 carries, or the quarterback, Drew Gustafson, I think. Or, is there a point where it's like, we got to ease back a little bit because we want him fresh when the playoffs arrive, and we don't want this, 20 carries or 25 carries a night wearing him down as the weather gets colder and we get deeper into the season, that kind of thing. So I'm curious to know what you think about that.
I think the game script thing, what's working's working. I mean, these kids all take care of themselves. They all know how to stay healthy. I mean, I think it's a similar thing for Shanbar, but if
I
you're
will say,
He's
Willie,
probably up around
quickly,
77 carries.
I will say, I've seen a lot of cramps this year, at least from the games I've been covering. lot of leg cramps. So these kids got to stay hydrated. I don't know what they're eating and drinking before the games, but a lot of kids going down with cramps.
Yeah, either that or the shoes aren't good, right? That causes the calf cramps if your shoes are too tight or you're on your toes too much. That'll ruin that real quick. But that's interesting. I mean, again, like I think you just coach each game. I'm not sure that you can really take that kind of long view, but obviously you want to be there, but these guys want the rock and you just, I mean, you try to spread it around a little bit when the game's in hand if you can, but at the same time, I mean, if you're consistently in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, I mean, there's no, I mean, why put the ball in the air, right? I mean, take the risk, right? I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I guess you'd kind of, and that's where this 9-week schedule gets interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
the Chieftains haven't had a bye yet either, so that's
Right.
going to throw the numbers off. Some of these teams are going to catch up a little bit. Part of it's health. I mean, obviously, split carries with Davis DeLutis in the opener, and then he didn't play for the last 3 weeks, and only got 1 carry last week. They really wanted him to focus his energy on defense. So as he gets healthy, that's going to change things. I mean, I think over the years we've seen St. John's Prep sort of employ that strategy. I mean, obviously the injury to Dylan Aliberti last year changed things, but
Yeah, it did.
Cam LaGrassa really didn't get any carries in the month of September last year. And I know they've done similar things with Carson Brown over the years, and what's his name, the little scat back, before that, Ace Preem. So
He's
hey,
yeah.
if you have horses, it's kind of a champagne problem, right? I mean, I don't know.
Hey, let's switch gears for a minute here. I wanted to ask you guys, I guess maybe more you, Willie, because Nick, I don't think you have any teams down in Cape Ann, but as we're getting closer to the end of the regular season, the teams are jockeying for playoff position in all sports. We've got some of our volleyball teams kind of jumping to the forefront here. I know Masconomet is having a great year. They're 11-1, 12-1, and they were ranked in the top 12 in Division II. I think Fenwick only has 1 loss. They were top 8 in Division 3. And, Ipswich, they've won now, I want to say 40 matches in a row, and they remain undefeated. They're not number 1 in Division 4. They were ranked 3rd the other day, but I don't think anybody wants to run into the Tigers come playoff time, having won back-to-back-to-back state titles. Just curious, Willie, as to, any thoughts you might have on that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's nice to see Masco back, new coach, a lot of good players. I think Marblehead is always a team that's,
Yeah.
we plays a really tough schedule and, hasn't gotten as many wins as they certainly would like, but I think is a formidable opponent for anybody, and they're in a high division too. I don't know where they come up with some of this stuff. Obviously it's all math and everything, but it always is interesting to me. I always think of Marblehead as a smaller school, and sometimes they're up here in Division 2, and then you got your Danvers in Division 3. I always think of Danvers as being bigger than Marblehead, but I guess that's not the case these days. Fenwick, I think, is a really good team too. They got a lot of really good players. They got the big basketball kid Boyle and Gwen Schroeder, and a number of just good passing kids. But then they seem to always have tight matches with NEC teams, right? So I mean, you
Yeah,
get
they do.
Danvers. I'm sorry, Fenwick is as you said, number 8 or 9 there in D3, and Danvers is sitting there at 22. I think they had a pretty tight match, and I know, I think Danvers beat Peabody twice, and Fenwick split with Peabody, so that could be an interesting potential postseason matchup if the brackets work out that way. If we saw Fenwick against Danvers, so that's something to sort of keep an eye on. But it's going to be really interesting for a lot of these Fenwick teams. Because a number of them probably have kids in big positions that haven't played in the postseason, and you got to wonder if that matters or not, right? We talk about it every year with the Stanley Cup. We're seeing it with the baseball playoffs now. I mean, did the bright lights bother you? Do you need that playoff experience? I mean, because a number of their obviously none of them played in the postseason last year, and then 2 years ago you would have been a sophomore. Maybe you were on the JVs or whatever. So it's going to be a whole new experience for
And
a
Boyle
lot
would
of
have been
these
a freshman on
teams.
that team 2 years ago. She's only a junior.
I'm just saying anybody. I mean, kid,
Yeah.
any any senior, not any specifics, but yeah, I mean, exactly, so that's going to be something to watch too as the postseason gets closer. These Fenwick teams getting a taste of things again.
Very true.
Nick, you got some rankings for us?
Yeah, sure. We can close out with that. Um,
So blind rankings.
yeah, a little blind rankings. We'll do 5. I know we like to do the pro stuff, but I figured we'd keep it local for this week. Maybe we can go back to some pro stuff next week. So I want to do one that I think we highlighted in maybe one of our summer series, or one of the things we did where we had people vote, and that's the best mascots. So we can only pick 5. So I came up with 5 different ones here, local teams only, including the Cape Ann, and I'll
All
just
right, so
start firing them off.
let me ask you here. Are we talking about like a mascot that like somebody's in a outfit and walking around like a
I was thinking,
Viking, or is it just like what it is on the helmet or the uniform, or what's the criteria?
yeah, I was thinking more like the logo and on the uniforms, that combination really.
Or like their word mark or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily the actual mascot that you're going to be dressing up as or that kind of thing.
How about, I mean, I know we can pick what we want here, but how about like unique to the area, like a PBD Tanner, fits that city where it wouldn't in, Marblehead. The Marblehead Tanners wouldn't work at all.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I got 5 already down here that are pretty good to the area, I'd say,
Okay.
for the most part, except maybe this first one, but we'll just kick it off with this one then.
Okay.
So first mascot I got on the list is the Crusaders of Bishop Fenwick.
The Crusaders certainly fits in well with the Catholic school. If you know your way back history there, the Crusades and whatnot. I'll put it at 4.
Okay. Seems appropriate.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it at 4 too. I mean, I like that it's unique. I don't like that it's actually not that unique. I mean, I was driving by Georgetown High School the other day, and their Royal Lancer was kind of the same logo, guy on a horse with a stick, like a knight. I mean, it's cool, but it's definitely not my favorite. And I think the historical perception of the Crusades has probably changed since they put it up there too. So I'm gonna also put it at 4. I'm not gonna put it 5 because I think it is somewhat unique, but it's not my favorite.
Okay. All right. Next one I got on here, which I think is very fitting for the school in the area, is the Gloucester Fishermen.
Yeah, it is. I was hoping you'd take another Cape Ann League school because there's one that I love. I'll go 3. Yeah, I mean, fits the culture, um, the je ne sais quoi of the city, certainly, and between football games and they shout to the river to the kids showing up in the yellow rain slickers at hockey games and whatnot. It's a real solid nickname. So yeah, 3's good.
I'm also gonna go 3. I mean, I really like the mascot, the Gordon's Fisherman looking guy, but I think that the color, the red, doesn't do it for me. And the logo, which oftentimes is just like the big block G, it's like,
Yeah.
If their logo was the Gloucester Daily Times logo, like picture that statue with the with the helmsman there and the steering wheel. I mean, now we're on to something, right? But now you're talking 1 or 2. But with all the secondary stuff, the big G and the maroon, I'm going to put it at 3.
Well, if I can interject for a second, that G, and sometimes we see that same S with Swampscott. Those I think are like MIA generated. They're not like the real logos. They just are used sometimes by the schools for whatever reason. But quick trivia question. Where in Gloucester is that statue with the fisherman, for those who go out to sea and whatnot, the famous picture? Where is that located?
Well, I don't know the area names of Gloucester too well, but isn't that right in front of the water there when you get towards downtown?
That would be Stacy Boulevard to
Oh, is
you.
that right?
Oh, there you go. See?
But
It's on the
no
road that
EY.
goes right along the water, right?
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
obviously have the EY. That is just STACY. So, but yeah,
Okay.
interesting trivia.
All right, next one. The Hamilton Wenham Generals.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Oof. 1 or 2? I'm gonna go 2 because you could surprise me, but I might be kicking myself here. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a badass logo. Obviously, the whole General Patton connotations where he lived in Hamilton. You get the tank out in center field in Patton Park. Like I said, that's a really cool logo. I'm gonna say 2, but I could be regretting that.
All right, Willie.
I'm gonna reluctantly put it at number 1 because I think that the general is great. I think the one that gets painted on the dugout with the mustache is tremendously great. And I think like the different iterations where you can have uniforms with like a military feel and the stars and whatnot is pretty cool. I think the helmet kind of smells like the whole Dallas Cowboy thing, like just doesn't do it for me. But I'm gonna put it number 1 anyway, because there's only one other one that's better, and I don't know if you're gonna say it. So, and plus, I don't want us to have the same list the whole time here. So,
Yeah,
throw
fair.
the Gens at number 1. The Surgeon Generals here.
So
All right,
I've
2
been
left.
picking first on these 2. You go first the next 2. That's fine.
Yeah, all right, Willie. So next one, we get 2 left. We'll go with the Marblehead Magicians.
I'm gonna put them at 5. Not my favorite. Again, like I think that the football one that they have on the hat sometimes is pretty cool. You know, the guy with the hat and the mustache, but you don't see that too often. You know, the hockey team refuses to even go by it. So I mean, how cool could it be? Let's put it at number 5.
And yeah, and I never understood, the relation to Marblehead. Is it just kind of the play on words there with Marblehead and Magicians?
So in the
No.
40s or the 50s, they
30s.
ran some trick play. In the 30s, they ran
30s.
some trick plays, and one of the journalists or a newspaper guy or a different coach or something said they were magicians because of the trick plays.
I
Okay.
think it was actually in one of those out-of-state matchups down in Florida where it was like, oh, they moved the ball so quickly and, maybe double reverses or whatever that they were known as the Magicians. Okay. So I have what, 1 and 5 left?
1 and
That's right.
5.
If you give me something basic, the next one, I'm going to be sour. I'll go 5. And you know what? I like that logo. I think it's really cool. I love it on the side of the building as you're playing on Piper Field. I like the black and red color scheme. I like the fact that the boys and girls hockey teams have their own nickname, but painted into a corner, that's what blind rankings are. I'll go 5.
That's what it is. That's what makes this tough. All right, last
Don't
one.
make this generic, man. I will be sour.
We got the Salem Witches.
All right. Yeah, that's good.
You can
What
take that.
I really wanted, honestly, was the Manchester Essex Hornets. I love that logo.
That's a cool logo.
That's my favorite logo on the North Shore. But Salem is pretty cool too. I mean, we talk about Gloucester being, fishermen being germane to that area. I mean, what's more recognizable in Salem than the Witches? They've had some different looks over the years. Some of the Witches look better than others. But just in terms of like a cool nickname to have your school represented by, yeah, the Witches is pretty cool. That's a good one.
All right,
Yeah, they belong number 1. I would have put them number 1. I mean, it's they got the drip going over there. The Jordan stuff looks amazing. The variety of helmets. I mean, you can do a black helmet, which looks amazing. You can do a red helmet, like with the logo, like the the Atlanta Falcons colors. I mean, it just
Yeah.
it's really they got it going over there. That's really good.
And don't
Black
give
and
me
red
the
is a
muscled
great
up
color.
witch either. I don't want like the muscled up witch. I want the old, haggard, scary, like face melting witch. That's the witch
Yep.
I want. Don't give me
Yep.
No,
this
no, the
new
basketball witch with the muscles is tremendous. That thing will dunk on you all day long.
exception. Okay, I'll give you that one. I just don't want like a jacked up, I'm going down on my 3-point stance witch. It's
Yeah, I
like,
agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
football. I
Yeah.
we don't need Pat Patriot as a witch. I agree with that.
yeah, yeah. But give me the more haggard the better. Give me warts. Give me stringy hair. Give me a hat with maybe a rip or a tear in it. Like that. That's a good old school witch. That's what I like. Yeah.
All right.
So
So we
what's going on with your Bruins?
My Bruins. Well, I saw you ripping the D up and down on the socials last night.
Yeah, not maybe not the best unit in the NHL. I don't know.
Well, 1 out of 82. Your backup gets lit up by a team celebrating their cup championship. I mean, it is what it is. This will be no different than getting pumped some night, Tuesday in February by somebody, just a blip on the radar.
I think it goes beyond that. I mean, they've had so many bad starts against this Florida team. They can't get out of their own way. They can't get their power play going. They can't. How many times are you going to give up 15 whatever shots in the first period against a team before you know find some? I mean, this was exactly an extension of the playoff series last year.
Yeah.
To me it was not fun. I know it's easy for everybody to say, oh, Corpusalo stinks. It was all Corpusalo, but you know looked exactly like what Florida did to Allmark and Swayman last year, if you ask me, and that makes me a little trepidatious.
Well, I did like the fact that they weren't trying to engage physically, and that might have led to some ill-advised penalties. But I like that, right out of the gate, it's like, hey, they've been steamrolled by this team for 2 years in the postseason, and they were, trying to take the initiative to take it to them. Now you could say, well, Florida was smart because they didn't engage, and blah blah blah. But I think it sets a good tone for them. Yeah, of course they have kinks to be worked out. Like you said, those slow starts are not great. They were swarmed early on, but hey, they got them again Monday at home. So, we'll see how it goes.
That's gonna be interesting. I mean, I don't think they're gonna be bad, but I want them to look a little better than that.
Yeah, and I guess we could mention too, like, who was your cup pick, Willie? Did you pick the Rangers?
I don't remember. Shows you how much conviction we have in these picks.
I don't think
I
he
might
went
have
with
been.
Rangers.
Now
You
there's a
have
good
Colorado,
decor.
maybe? What's that? I had Dallas over the Bruins. I never take the Bruins these things, but I don't know. I got a good feeling this year. They might go on a little run. Would you
Yeah.
have, Nick?
I think I had the Oilers,
Beating who?
the Rangers. Oilers over Rangers.
All right.
Willie had Rangers over Avalanche. You're right, and you had the Stars over the Bruins.
Okay.
What is this? This is all goofed up here. Oh my
And
goodness.
we all really went out on a limb, I saw too, and took Connor McDavid as the MVP.
I mean, he's pretty clearly the best player, I would say. And I don't watch a ton of hockey, but he's kind of the guy right now.
By ton of hockey, do you mean zero?
I'll tune in for the playoffs.
By tuning in for the playoffs, you mean passing by it?
Come on.
Come on.
Got a little better over the years.
Yeah. All right. That wraps up another podcast for us from your trio of charming sports writers here. Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, I'm Phil Stacey. Thanks for tuning in, listening, watching. We will see you at the games this weekend. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will talk to you next week.